You are entering the Flip2Freedom video experience.
Have I got your attention now?
You show me a pay stub for $72,000 on it, I quit my job right now.
Do you care to know why I earn the big bucks? But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something.
Now, your host, Sean Terry.
Hello again, it's Sean Terry from the Flip2Freedom Podcast, and we are on episode number 145. And in today's episode, I have a phenomenal guest that I'll be speaking to, Brett Burris out of Clearwater, Florida. Now, I met Brett at our boardroom mastermind this past January, and he has a phenomenal story that he is going to share. He literally mailed in December, no results. Mailed in January, no results. I met him in January. He was a little nervous at the time. I remember, questioning, and about certain things and numbers and making sure he had it dialed in. But one thing that resonated with me when I first met him is his absolute belief in this is going to work no matter what. There was no question with him, is it going to work? He knew he just had to get his numbers dialed in, understand it, so now it can become predictable that when it does work, he's going to blow it up. So what happened was, since January, where we met, he got his first deal in February, which he explains how he got it, what list he got it from, what mail piece. He made a $10,000 check and has scaled it now into mid-June to $300,000 in revenue. And he talks about how he has scaled the business. He talks about and gives advice for someone that's brand new and they're just getting started and they're in a kind of like a research stage. They haven't taken any first action steps yet. What should they do? What's the best advice that he could give them? He also gave some great advice to people that are in that period where, and he calls it a gestation period, where you're investing in the business, but you haven't got anything back yet. He talked a great analogy where you plant a seed in soil, right? And, a month later, you don't expect to see, corn or crops yet. You don't expect to see it. It takes time for, the seed to, take root and be able to push through the soil and give signs of life there. So, at that time, he gives advice to people on what happens within that time where you're investing, but there is no life. There is no signs of life. And what to focus on, and which I thought was amazing. And also he gives advice for someone that has this roller coaster. They're doing a deal, then maybe another deal, then their income's inconsistent. He gives a great advice to them. So this is a phenomenal interview that you're absolutely going to love. And Brett, shares everything. And you'll understand, listening to him, that it's a lot about mindset. And we talk about it all the time. It's 20% mechanics and 80% mindset. And he talks about the two different people that come into this business and why one group succeeds and the other group doesn't. So, which I think is important. So this is a great interview. Make sure you go to flip2freedom.com, flip2freedom.com. There you can download a book that I wrote. I've had people tell me they've spent over $1,000 for the same information that we give away for free in that book. It's a 129-page book, and it breaks down in detail every single step about this entire business. Also, we got 143 different episodes you can listen to at Flip2Freedom, or in iTunes, or in SoundCloud, or in Stitcher, or in any of these other hosting sites you can listen to, and definitely go there. We got some cool stuff on the site, great resources, great gifts you can download, and stuff like that. So let's get into the interview with Brett. I know you're going to love it. We get into detail, and it's going to be a blast. So I'll see you on the other side. All right, Sean Terry here, and we are back with the interview with Brett Burris from Clearwater, Florida. Brett, how's it going, bro?
Hey, Sean, doing great, man. Thanks for the invite.
So I have been completely inspired by your story, from corporate career to laid off to massive success story, flipping houses. So let's get into it. So what was your corporate career?
So, Sean, I spent about 17 years in digital marketing. I owned a couple different companies, sold one of them. And when I saw your program, I had been asked to consult with a software company based in Florida. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into a full-time job offer, which quite honestly, I haven't really had any jobs as a professional. This is the first time I've ever accepted a job. And so I was responsible for sales and marketing for a software company.
Okay. Cool. And so, but you said you saw the program. What specific program was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I had a friend. I was at a personal development event, and a friend of mine introduced me to his stepson, a guy named Josh Rojas, and he started talking to me about wholesaling. And I had flipped some houses and rehabbed some houses in the past, and I was looking at him like he had three heads because I had no idea what he was talking about, and like most people, just had never heard of it. So he turned me on to your Flip2Freedom program, and I knew I was too busy to really get serious about it, but I was intrigued, and so I made the investment and started watching the videos and sort of dabbled. You know, I hear you talk a lot about people's first step is dabbling. I dabbled. Yeah. Wasn't serious about it, sent out a few mailers, phone rang a little bit, had a bunch of people say, hey, take me off your list. And I was just busy, and so I just sort of didn't do much with it. Right. And this was beginning of 2016 when this was going on. Okay. And so you were still working digital marketing company at that time, and you kind of were dabbling in kind of watching some videos and stuff like that on the Flip2Freedom wholesaling. And what was the point where you're like, okay, I got to get serious about this? Well, that was really simple because I walked into the office one day, and about an hour later, I was walking out with, a cardboard box with pictures of my kids and stuff in it because I was done there. I was let go. And I remember coming home, and my wife came home a little while later, and she said, what are you doing here? Because I was a 70, 80 hour a week guy. Right. I was always an all-in guy, whatever it takes to make it happen. And so it was probably 3:00. She hadn't seen me at 3:00 ever, I think. And so she says, what are you doing here? And so my kids are right there. So we walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and I said, hey, they let me go. And she looked back at me, and she said, great. Are you serious? She said, great, because you didn't belong there anyway. Now, that was easy for her to say. I was a $225, $250 a year guy who just went to zero. Right. So I wasn't feeling great about that. But her point was it was misaligned. There were some issues. And so I said, look, we're going to make real estate work. And we decided right there at that moment that it was a done deal. And we got started. Like, we took it very seriously. So she knew you were unhappy in your current position. And how old were you at the time? Well, this was just last year. Oh. So I was 42. So 42 years old. You're used to making $250 a year, Clearwater, Florida, 3 beautiful girls. And all of a sudden now you are in a point to where you are now unemployed, right? And making that transition. That probably, for a lot of people, that freaks people out, right? That's a transition point where either will make or break you. But, after talking to you and getting to know you, you have the mentality of, a champion. So, that's why I know you, you blew it up. So tell us about that thing. So you're at that transition. So the next day you don't go to a job, right? So you're done. Your stuff is boxed up. Now you're a
You're an entrepreneur doing your own deal. What was that next day like? Did you take it off and say, I'm going boating, I'm done? Or did you say, you know, I got to dive in and figure out this real estate? What'd you do?
So Sean, I'm so happy you asked that question, because I think success or failure has more to do with your thoughts and your beliefs than anything else. And so that was a Friday. Mm-hmm. The next day, we were in the car driving to Disney World.
Right.
We went and met some of our closest friends, very successful family that lives here in Clearwater, and we went and had a blast. Mm-hmm. And what I said to my wife was this: I said, look, I'm gonna take about a week to take a deep breath. I hadn't taken a week off in a long, long time.
Right.
And I just kind of took a breath, and this was November of last year. So I'm not going back that far. This is 8 months ago. Yep. Take a breath. Some family came in for Thanksgiving. I had talked to some of the folks at REWW and decided to get all in signed up for mastermind coaching, the whole thing, because I knew that I had a large problem to solve, and I had to go replace some pretty significant income.
Right.
And so I knew I had to go all in. I had to put all the chips on the table and give myself the best chance of winning. And so took a little bit of time off, not much, about a week, went all in and really started to work the business.
Right. So you got your clarity. That's actually smart, you know, and a lot of people, you know, when they get into business and they, you know, and they want to try to figure it out by, you know, watching YouTube videos or maybe listening to some podcasts, which in podcasts are great. And I've actually had people listen to podcasts and go out and do their, you know, first couple deals and stuff. But you invested in yourself. You wanted to get the fast track, get all the right information, right directly from the source, and it's helped off. So tell me, you know, so you basically stepped up, you got that information. What was the first thing that you did that was like the step forward in your wholesaling business?
Well, we decided to immediately start doing direct mail. So I listened to the videos, your videos, and some of the REWW videos, and I went through the REWW Academy.
Yep.
And here's what I'll say. I treated it like a prescription for the sickness that I had. Mm-hmm. Right, I had a sickness. I didn't have any more income. That's like a disease.
Right.
And so I treated it in a very prescriptive way, and I just followed it step by step by step. I didn't overthink it. In fact, I hardly even thought about it. I was very fortunate in my life that I've always made pretty decent money, and I had some credit cards that had some room on them. Mm-hmm. And so on faith, we just started investing in direct mail. And here's what's interesting, Sean. I think this is really worth people hearing. So this is now December of last year.
Right.
We planted seeds in December, but nothing popped up. We planted seeds in January. Nothing popped up. I'm not talking about a couple hundred mailers. We were doing thousands and thousands of dollars of mail in December and January. On faith, no job, no income, spending money. And so, but here's what happened. I didn't get nervous about that. And here's why. A really smart person told me, you would not go step into a field, plant an acorn, and then scream at the ground for not giving you an oak tree a day later.
Right.
And so we can't control, it's the law of gestation. We can't control those things. And so in faith, we did that. And then in February, the crop came.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting. You said something that was important. There's two different attitudes when you approach this business, right? There's the attitude is, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see if it works. And it's a Vegas mentality. So I'm going to bring $100. If I can, hit, if I can hit the dice, or I can get a 21, or if I can double my money, triple my money, then great. The other type of attitude mentality is, I'm going to treat it like a business. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to take it as if it's like you're taking a curriculum when you're going through the courses and learning it and applying the information and then taking action with 100% belief that it's going to work. It is the key factor. There are so many people that say, I'm going to buy this $500 course or whatever the case, and they're kind of crossing their fingers and they go, if it doesn't work in 30 days, and I'm just going to try to see if it works, I'm going to throw a couple mailers out and try a couple. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to ask for a refund. And they are doing their self an injustice. I always look like, is the barrier of entry is so small to get into this business. If you were going to buy a McDonald's for $1 million, or if you're going to buy a Subway for $250,000, and you've got real cash into it, you're not going to just try it. You're going to make it work. You're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. And so I commend you on that mentality, because that's the mentality it takes. And I think the success rate for people, if they took that mentality, right, from the get-go, their success rate would be absolutely through the roof. The problem, people go, well, I've seen people, they've tried this and it doesn't work. Well, what was their mentality? Were they just rolling the dice, going to Vegas and hoping to hit a jackpot, or were they, taking it seriously and investing in themselves and investing in the business to go out and get the results? So let's talk about those 2 months, right? So you got December and you got January. You said you operated on faith. It's easy to look, now that you've had massive success, to look back and say, hey, that was a great decision. But during those dark times, during the times when the phone was ringing, the calls were coming in, you're spending money on the mail, and nothing is transpiring, what was the conversation you had with yourself in your head?
That's another great question. So I decided that the results or lack thereof had very little to do with the overall outcome that I was looking for long term. And so what I mean by that is this, is if somebody called and said, take me off your list, that was the noise. It wasn't the signal. And so I can remember, and I still do this to this day, I can't even remember the no's, and I can't remember the conversations that didn't lead to a deal. I literally can't remember them. And so when I was going through that for those 60 days of no fruit, it helped that I had a wife who stands with me and is on the same level with me when it comes to belief and the mind in those things. And so without that, I'm not sure I'd have made it on my own. But man, Sean, it was like, we didn't care. We knew what we wanted to have happen. We knew the end product we wanted to come out of this machine. And I was determined to make that end product happen.
Right.
And so, some people would say they were nervous and scared, and what are you going to do? My belief was so high that I never even thought about being nervous.
So how did you get yourself like that?
Well,
because people are thinking, they're going, well, my belief isn't there, and I'm afraid to do mail. I'm afraid to spend money. I'm afraid, if a deal doesn't come in, how did you convince yourself to get the belief so high? Did you watch success stories? Was it the training, and the education that gave you the confidence? Did you have a friend of yours that was already doing it and had massive success that gave you, how for someone right now that's listening, and there's thousands of people listening right now, that are missing that belief component. And the belief component is a massive thing, because if you have belief behind anything you do, then it's going to give you certainty, and if you have certainty, you can execute, right? But if you have doubt, and then you try to, then you have this internal agony of just doubt of, is it going to work? And then essentially, for most people, that doubt voice talks them out of doing this. So how did you get yourself in that belief?
So that's been a journey, and I think that's a journey for anyone. See, when I met this business, I was a different Brett Burris than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Right.
And so what I'll say about belief is this: beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking. And so we believe certain things about life or food or exercise or relationship mostly because we were taught those things. And so I'm so glad you said what you said, because I don't care if people listening to this don't ever go flip a house. Here's what I want people to walk away with. I want them today to take 5 minutes and ask themselves, I think, the most powerful question I've ever asked myself. Why do I believe what I believe? And that turned into a very deep moment for me. And I say a moment, it was an evolution, because Sean, what I realized was the majority of the garbage that I believed was told to me or taught to me by people who are no longer in my life, by people who I hardly even knew, by people who were broke, not just financially broke, but spiritually broken people.
Right.
And so I had to reconstruct a set of beliefs. And that's really what I did. My wife has done the same thing. We try to teach our kids the same thing, but beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking. And so I was kind of ready for that when I saw this business. But if somebody's listening to this saying, well, this sounds like a bunch of hocus pocus, feel good, whatever. Here's what I said. Beliefs drive everything in your life. And if you don't think that that's true, just examine your life. And it works in both the positive and the negative.
Totally.
Some people wake up every day and say, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too black, I'm too white, I'm not smart enough. Well, that movie comes to fruition every single day in their life. Sean, I just decided I'm not going to tell myself those things. So that's number one. Number two is my buddy Josh in New Orleans. He was right there with me. And he didn't act nervous when I told him I lost my job. He was like, come on, man, we're going to do this together. Mm-hmm. And we talked almost every day. And he's doing wholesaling part-time and doing really, really well. Mm-hmm. And so he was encouraging me, and his belief system and his mind and his personal development is on the same level. And so it was really helpful to have someone there that was about 6 or 8 months ahead of me, encouraging me and helping me along the way.
Great.
So I think it was that combination.
Great advice. So it's action steps people listening that could take away right now is surround yourself around people that are already doing what you want to do, right? That are having success, that can reinforce that belief that it will work when you have times of doubt. And then 2, examine what your thoughts are, repetitive thoughts are on a daily basis. And then if you can identify those thoughts and then redirect those thoughts on what you want and repeat that over and over again, then it's going to shift the universe and line up things and the right people and events and circumstances to support that vision, right? And I think that's a key point. And it's hard when you're in the muck, in that December and January when you're putting out money and leads haven't come in and deals haven't come in. But you can focus on what's not working, or you can focus on what is working and where you are going. And that makes all the difference, and obviously it did. So let's go into now that phone call that you got. Well, first off, real quick, tell us did you use a postcard, did you use a letter, and what list did you mail?
Yeah, so here's the thing I love about this business. I have not done anything with regards to like the tactical execution of a wholesaling business. I haven't done a single thing that's unique. And if you've been in business for a while, when you hear somebody say that, you just want to throw a party. I used a little yellow postcard. I didn't change one word on it other than my name is Brett. And it's got the little handwriting and the doodling, and it's like the cheapest little thing you can buy to send. So we send postcards, mm-hmm. and someone gets that recipient or that prospect gets a postcard from us every 7 weeks. And we start, my wife's an engineer by education. So, she knows how to keep things straight.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, if you work with a great printing company, they'll help you keep it straight too. If they'll get involved in your business in a way that'll help you. So if you're not a detail person, don't worry about it. Just go find a print house, mail house that'll help you keep it together.
Right.
So we mailed the motivations just like you teach.
Uh-huh.
And we mail them on a 7-week cycle. And yeah, it's just the 4x6 yellow postcard.
So you didn't reinvent the wheel. You did what was everyone was doing that works, and you got results. So that phone call that came in, and when was that? So December, January, nothing, but in February something came in or a call came in. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a guy called me. He had inherited this house like 8 years ago. It was his parents' house. He lived in Texas.
Okay.
He had a house here in Clearwater.
Right.
And he just kept saying during the call, he's like, hey, man, look, I know it's basically a teardown. And I hadn't even looked at it yet. So I said, okay, well, I'll go take a look. So I just went and drove by it. And I was like, well, I don't think it's a teardown. I'm thinking to myself, like, right. I don't think it's a teardown. So I call the guy back and I say, yeah, look, I'm not sure, but I'd like to see the inside. Would you send me the key? People laugh at me when I tell them this. I get sellers from out of town to send me keys to houses all the time. I just sort of expect them to do it, so they do it. So anyway, this guy sends me a key. Nobody had been in this house in 10 years. I walk in, I look around, I leave, I call him back. And he says, look, man, I just want the land value. And I said, well, I can't give you the land value because I'm going to have to demolish the house if it is a teardown and all this stuff. So anyway, I buy the house. I'll get a contract on the house for $15,000. 15.
Now, first off, on the call, I always tell you, when a motivated seller calls you, you will know it, right? And when you're talking to this guy, there was not a shadow of a doubt in your mind that this was your first deal.
That's right. And here's the thing. It wasn't really about the money. And as you guys teach, if it's about getting the highest price, then I'm not going to be the best option anyway.
Right.
It was just about, he didn't want to have the grass cut anymore. He didn't want to have to think about this house. This guy was getting up in age and he just wanted to simplify things. And so we talked and we got to a place and we landed on this $15,000 number. And I emailed him an agreement and he signed it. I signed it and we were good. And then I panicked because I had been working on building my buyer database, but not for very long. And I didn't have any buyers. And so I panicked a little bit, like, oh, what am I going to do? And ironically enough, my daughter's softball coach is a handyman and he doesn't have a ton of money, but I knew he could do a $25,000 kind of deal or whatever. And so I sold it to my daughter's softball coach.
Right.
For $25,000. I made 10 grand.
It made 10 grand on your first deal. All right, now that I know we're not completed, great interview. We are going to have part 2 next week. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You go to Flip2Freedom.com, you download the book, you get on our email list so you can get notified when this episode comes out. Because when he closes out, he talks about some incredibly powerful stuff that will enable you to take your business to the next level, or turn this hobby into a 6-figure business for yourself. So go to Flip2Freedom.com right now, Flip2Freedom.com, download the book for free, and stay tuned next week for part 2 of the Brett Burris interview, and we'll see you then. Take care and God bless.